Hi, my name is Kiva Schuler. I am the founder and CEO of the Jai Institute for Parenting, which trains and certifies coaches in our peaceful parenting methodology. One of the foundational things that we teach parents who go through our program is emotional intelligence. And so today, I'm excited to share ways that you can gain greater access to emotional intelligence. The first thing that I have to share with you today is to get curious about your own emotions and feelings. Self-inquiry is the doorway to greater emotional intelligence. Without emotional intelligence, we tend to experience, express, and communicate our feelings in very broad categories like sad or angry or happy. But there's a rainbow of emotions available to us, and they provide a lot of information to us as leaders, parents, partners, people in friendship. And so rather than doing what perhaps we've been conditioned to do from a very young age, which is to avoid emotions, which leads to self-destructive behavior in most cases, we actually want to develop a practice of getting curious about what we are experiencing when we experience it. And so let's use sadness as an example. Sadness is something that we all experience, but there are a myriad of flavors, if you will, to sadness. So one flavor of sadness might be feeling ashamed, whereas another is feeling lonely. If we even deepen into our experience of, say, loneliness, there are a couple of things that could cause loneliness. Maybe we feel abandoned by people close to us, or we feel isolated. By getting curious and landing on isolation, we can then take measures to alleviate that feeling. First of all, we always want to ask ourselves, is it true, right? Is it true that I'm isolated? Sometimes these feelings that we have are just conditioned reactive responses, essentially patterned in our neural pathways. If we are indeed isolated, we can then take steps to alleviate isolation. Phone a friend, go out to dinner, go cuddle with your kids. And so our own emotional experience is the first foundation of emotional intelligence, because until we can understand and appreciate these distinctions within ourselves, it's really difficult or even impossible to help others find the nuance and expression of their own emotional experience. The second thing that you can do to gain a greater degree of emotional intelligence is to learn to self-regulate so that you can co-regulate. I want to share one of my favorite quotes from you. This is from Viktor Frankl in Man's Search for Meaning. He says, "Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. And in our response lies our growth and our freedom." Most of us are operating with some level of unconscious emotional reactivity. We feel something, something triggers us, and we react. This is human nature. We can all identify people in our lives that perhaps have a hairpin response to anger, or perhaps people who, when they're feeling sad, withdraw and remove themselves from connection. These are simply ingrained patterns of behavior that were likely established when we were very young as defense mechanisms to emotional wounding that we experienced from parents or caregivers, teachers, and peers. They're the ways that our body has learned to be with whatever emotional experience that we are having. So trigger, reaction. As I'm sure you're aware, this causes a lot of disconnection, conflict, and separation in human relationships. Viktor Frankl points to the solution to this, which is in the pause. We want to train ourselves out of our reactive behavior and move into responsive behavior. And this is what in nervous system science we call self-regulation. It's the ability to maintain our own emotional temperature so that we don't blow up all over the people that we love. A lot of people think that their emotional reactivity is just who they are, but that's not true. You can absolutely learn the skills of self-regulation, and there's a lot of things that you can do to do this. The breath is actually one of the most powerful. You can also wash your hands or splash cold water on your face. I know someone who likes to go in her bathroom and sing herself a song. There are many, many tools, but this is very important because when a person is in any sort of reactive fight or flight response, we actually don't have access to the higher processing center of the brain. When you take two people that are in fight or flight response, it's a recipe for relational disaster. And so as the leader, we're going to take responsibility and in essence, put our own oxygen mask on first. Once we learn the skill of self-regulating, right, not being reactive to our emotions, we can actually help other people co-regulate with us. And so with children, right, we can sit with them, we can just be present. We can give people space. We learn that their reactivity isn't personal. It's simply their ingrained pattern of behavior. And so we're able to meet the moment with a lot more compassion and empathy, which I'm going to talk more about here in just a minute. The third invitation that I have for you today is to develop your emotional capacity, your ability to be with whatever is happening for you. Now, I know negative feelings are not comfortable. They don't feel good, but they can't actually hurt you. And one of the things that I've discovered as I've been on this journey is that the more we're able to be with negative emotions and feel them fully, actually the greater access that we have to the good feelings that we get from positive emotions, and we're able to experience more joy, connection, and peace of mind. And so it's worth it. And so here's the exercise that I have for you. The next time that you're feeling something negative, instead of analyzing it, numbing it, or avoiding it, which is what most of us have been taught to do, these things weren't modeled to us as children, I want you to sit with it. The process works best if you actually stay out of your head. I don't want you to tell yourself stories about what's happening or try to analyze it or even solve the problem that seems to be causing you this discomfort in your body. I actually just want you to feel it in your physicality. And so I want you to notice, what is the sensation of this feeling? Does it feel heavy? Does it feel sharp? Does it feel tingly or dull? Where are you feeling it in your body? Is it in your stomach or in your heart? Is it in your shoulders or in your face? Can you find the point, like the most intense point of this feeling? If the feeling had a color, what color would it be? If it had a shape, what shape would it be? Now, this can all seem silly, but you're going to discover some pretty incredible things if you're willing to do this. First of all, you're going to discover that no one was harmed in this process. Feelings are uncomfortable, but they can't actually hurt us. Second, you're going to notice that by simply feeling the feeling and being with it in your physical experience, the feeling will dissipate. And often you will get a moment of insight or deep clarity about the circumstance that was causing that feeling. From that clarity, you can then respond in an appropriate way instead of unleashing your negative emotions all over someone else or avoiding them and not dealing with the matter at hand. The final piece that I have for you today is to make the shift from defensiveness to curiosity and empathy. It is very human to defend our ideas, our feelings, our experience. But if we get a whole lot of people defending their position, it doesn't actually lead to positive outcomes and solutions. As leaders, it can feel like we have to defend to maintain our authority or position, but this actually robs us of trust and connection with the people that we need to follow us to achieve our vision or goal. Defensiveness is a habit and it can be unlearned. And so for me, when I start to feel defensive, I've come to see it as a warning sign, a kind of inner like danger, danger, danger. So when defensiveness comes into my experience, I will often say to the person, hey, I noticed myself getting defensive. Could we pause here and can you give me 5 minutes to go get my thoughts together? This will transform the way that you operate within your family or within your team. So the beauty of curiosity and empathy is that we open ourselves to the experience of another person by softening our defensiveness and wondering what was up for us and then getting curious about what was up for another person. We often have an entirely new perspective on what just happened in that situation. Every human being has feelings. And what's true is emotional intelligence is a range, right? It lives on a bell curve, just like most things. As we become more and more emotionally intelligent and more attuned with our own emotional experience, we actually develop a lot more compassion because other people may not have these tools. And so when we are presented with someone who's being defensive or reactive, instead of seeing them as wrong or whatever, we can actually get curious about what it was. Like, where was that third rail that we just got close to? And how can we pave a new path forward for relating and solution-oriented thinking? Right? We don't get mad at a baby for not knowing how to walk. And it's not really useful to be mad at other people for having emotional reactivity. They may simply not know what we know. Lowering our own defensiveness opens us up to a whole new perspective of being in human relationships. And I believe a much better frame of leadership, because when we embrace emotional intelligence in our skill set, people trust us, they're loyal, and they want to follow us. If you're curious about the work that we're doing here at the Jai Institute for Parenting, I invite you to visit our website. We are on a mission to help parents meet their children with more compassion, empathy, and connection, and to pave a new world for children to step into adolescence and adulthood with their self-worth intact and actually have these skills in their awareness because they were modeled beautifully by their parents who love them so much. Thanks so much for watching. You can find us at www.jaiinstituteforparenting.com.